This is Alex, age 23. Alex is studying at university. Alex likes doing yoga and loves to live a happy life. However, one day Alex wakes up with a fever and her whole body aches. She decides to go to the doctor to make sure everything is all right. But the doctor is a bit unsure about Alex's diagnosis and wants to do a blood test. After 1 week, the doctor informs Alex that she's HIV positive. Alex is confused. Because what does HIV positive mean? Let's have a look. HIV is short for Human Immunodeficiency Virus, not to confuse with AIDS, which is Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. HIV is a virus that attacks cells that help the body fight infection, making a person more vulnerable to other infections and diseases. If left untreated, HIV can lead to the disease AIDS. AIDS is the late stage of HIV infection that occurs when the body's immune system is badly damaged because of the virus. You can have an HIV infection with few or no symptoms for years before it turns into AIDS. Only 40% of the newly infected people have symptoms that require medical care. These symptoms are often flu-like and include fever, night sweat, vomiting, tiredness, diarrhea, and headaches. All that is big news for Alex. She decides to inform her long-term partner because HIV can be transmitted via unprotected sexual intercourse. But that's not the only way how HIV can be passed on from one person to another. So how else can HIV be transmitted? HIV can be transmitted via the exchange of a variety of body fluids from infected people, such as blood, breast milk, semen, and vaginal secretions. HIV can also be transmitted from a mother to her child during pregnancy and delivery. Although many people believe that individuals can become infected through ordinary day-to-day contact, HIV cannot be spread through kissing, hugging, shaking hands, or sharing personal objects, food, or water. Alex's partner is worried about her, but also about his own health. However, Alex and her partner are not alone with this diagnosis. Worldwide, there are about 38 million people infected, about 20 million people alone in East and Southern Africa. But where did HIV actually come from? HIV has first been identified in 1981 by scientists. There is now a wealth of evidence on how, when, and where HIV first began to cause illness in humans. HIV is a type of lentivirus, which means it attacks the immune system. In a similar way, the Simian Immunodeficiency Virus, the SIV, attacks the immune system of monkeys and apes. In 1999, researchers found a strain of SIV in a chimpanzee that was almost identical to HIV in humans. They concluded that it proved chimpanzees were the source of HIV and that the virus at some point crossed species from chimps to humans. The first verified case of HIV is from a blood sample taken in 1959 from a man living in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. There are numerous earlier cases where patterns of deaths suggest that HIV was the cause, but this was the first verified incident. Okay, but how did HIV spread? Perhaps one of the most surprising aspects of the HIV/AIDS pandemic is the unequal spread of HIV. Some regions and populations have been affected far more than others due to a broad, unequal combination of biological and social factors. Worldwide, it can be observed that there are vulnerable population groups which are more affected than others, such as sex workers, people who inject drugs, men who have sex with men, transgender women, and clients of sex workers. Even though these population groups are more affected than others, advances in medicine have lowered the cases of HIV-related mortality over the last decade. Since 2005, the number of deaths from AIDS has decreased by 1 million. Furthermore, due to educational and political measures, a trend can be observed that worldwide the number of new cases of HIV has decreased as well.
If HIV/AIDS is the deadliest pandemic of our time, why then is it less visible within societies than other viruses like the influenza? Why is there less discourse concerning HIV/AIDS? One of the main reasons responsible for this is stigma. Stigma has been defined as any characteristic, real or perceived, that conveys a negative social identity. In other words, members of key populations, gay men and men having sex with men, transgender people, women and girls, sex workers, people who inject drugs, and prisoners. Nonetheless, anyone could eventually be affected by HIV stigma. Unfortunately, there's a circular relationship between HIV, stigma, discrimination, and social withdrawal. The vicious circle begins with the stigmatization of the key population or people that have HIV/AIDS. These are likely to be associated with certain qualities which are then criminalized and therefore stigmatized by society. Thus, this form of stigmatization can lead to discriminatory acts, which in return can result in the social withdrawal of individuals. This withdrawal from the community can lead to reduced self-worth and loss of control. These factors increase the likelihood of submitting to involuntary sex acts. Moreover, these people are highly vulnerable to engaging in crime-related activities. Criminal activities such as prostitution and drug use extremely increase the possibility of getting infected with HIV, which in return affirms the stigma. Related to HIV, stigma can occur on different levels. First of all, there's the internalized stigma, which refers to negative feelings or thoughts about one's HIV status. People affected by the self-stigma stated the following: I am ashamed that I am HIV positive. I sometimes feel worthless because I am HIV positive. I hide my HIV status from others. These negative feelings make it more likely for the affected to avoid the doctor, or might even result in quitting the medication. Unfortunately, the internalized stigma can be reinforced by community stigma, as the community can play a significant role in ostracizing the affected person. For instance, a medical practitioner in South Africa stated, people think they can get infected just by looking at you or being in the same room as you, which is discriminating and hurting, especially for HIV-positive patients. This in turn makes it very difficult for HIV/AIDS workers to continue with their work, as in some cases they are shunned out by society and labeled as a threat. Next is the governmental stigma. This includes the discriminatory laws against key populations such as the criminalization of homosexuality, sex work, drug use, but also laws that actively reinforce the stigma by criminalizing the non-disclosure, exposure and transmission of HIV. Especially the criminalization of non-disclosure causes more harm than good. Victims of stigmatization would rather be non-confirmed HIV positive than exposing themselves to testing, which could potentially render them illegal in many contexts. These people usually have more immediate concerns in life, and treating HIV might seem a less urgent matter for them. Unfortunately, this may contribute to an increased spread of HIV. Then there's healthcare stigma. The healthcare stigma leads to discrimination of HIV patients, resulting in denied treatment, disrespect, and minimized contact with other patients. For example, a pregnant HIV-positive woman in the US stated, One of the nurse practitioners told me, "Well, you know, if God was here, he'd probably strike you to hell already." And it devastated me. After I went home, I sat down, and all I could do was just cry. Concluding, stigma are not only stressful and painful for individuals, but also impede addressing the severeness of the pandemic, as stigma promotes discriminatory behavior towards people related to HIV, thus complicating the ongoing fight against the virus. However, there's not only bad news. More and more successful campaigns have been launched all across the world to raise awareness and minimize stigma through education. The most renowned events include the Global AIDS Day, the Life Ball in Vienna, regular protests around the world, and the launch of a global partnership to eliminate HIV-related stigma and discrimination by UNAIDS. Do you remember Alex and her partner? They are regularly taking their medication. Even though there is no cure for HIV, advances in health science have achieved that HIV no longer is a death sentence for infected people. Through daily treatment with antiretroviral therapy, the continuous reproduction of the HIV virus cells in the body can be suppressed. Although this medication can have side effects such as diarrhea, headache, and pain, the benefits absolutely outweigh the downsides of having an antiretroviral therapy. Especially women infected with HIV that take effective antiretroviral drugs can benefit from the positive effects, as they can give birth without transferring HIV to their newborns. Alex and her partner are fit and energetic. They invest their energy in educating young people about HIV/AIDS and are actively participating in events and activities that inform the public on the topic. Their final aim is to reduce the stigma of people associated with HIV/AIDS.